Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and also good night if it's nighttime. Now, this is the third video of my 10 video exercise, and the topic is job interviews. Now, please excuse my disheveled appearance because I've just done the school run, and I'm also just doing some DIY jobs around the house. So, let's just get ready for this video. So, if you comb your hair, shave or trim your beard, make yourself presentable, and we'll begin with my handy list of interview tips. And we're back, and I hope you like that handy list of interview tips, which I accrued just from various job interviews I've attended, mostly as a candidate, but I have actually sat on the other side of the table on one or two occasions. Basically, I've had some really great interviews and met some really great people and wonderful jobs, but I've also had real stinkers of interviews where it's become a complete disaster or the employer is frankly awful. So I hope that that list is helpful, but it's also quite self-evident, I think. I would strongly advise everyone and anyone to look at the available resources which are out there online in books. There's various organizations which can help regarding your polishing up on CV, interview techniques, follow-up questions, also how to actually find those jobs, because sometimes there seems to be lots of vacancies out there, but it's actually quite hard to find the job which is right for you. I would also add to that, it's also important to, once you do get the post, to consider your role in it and your future, because once you've got that job, even if it's a dream job, you have to start thinking about the future. And one of the things which I learned really late was, don't stick with an employer or a job which isn't helping you or you're not happy with. I've fool me twice. I've stuck with employers out of misguided senses of loyalty, and the fact is, in today's world, that loyalty is rarely, if ever, rewarded. And in actual fact, it's actually an impediment, I would say. So you have to think about yourself. So that's a very strong caveat to interview skills and advice. So why am I doing this video? That's a good question, actually. Why am I doing it? Particularly because I was going to do the video either about painting rocks or about the Nintendo Switch as a parent. But the reason was I just recently had a job interview. It didn't go well. It was very perfunctory, generic questions, generic responses from my part. I tried to fit it in with my current circumstances, but dare I say, it's quite difficult to do that, because I'm a full-time carer, so I'm returning to work, and a lot of the questions were about work-related things, and I knew from my research that employer isn't really interested in what you did before. They want to know what you're doing now. So that was a bit difficult. I tried to weave it back to my previous experience, but it didn't seem to work. And then the follow-up questions, you could see that they'd switched off, and it went really quickly, and I was out the door before you knew it. And suffice to say, didn't get a call back, just got an email, thank you, no thank you. So that was a disappointment, and I thought, well, given my experience, why didn't I just do a straight to video about how I feel you can improve things. So, how to improve things? Well, some of the thinking out there is, avoid the red flags. I don't think that's really really quite useful. For instance, one of the red flags is if the job descriptions don't match to the actual job. But um, I know one employer, they use generic job descriptions. I don't know why they do that, but they do it. So I went for an interview, and I was like, oh, I have payroll experience, and they were like, we don't do payroll. And then I went, oh, it was in the job description, and they went, oh yeah, well, that's just a generic one. We do this, and you go, and then so that kind of that's a problem, but you still want the job. Um, Similarly, you can try and get insider information. Like I know for people, and I got some what the job was like. But once again, you kind of put it in, and then you discover, well, there's already somebody in place, or things like that. So, I mean, that's a disappointment. Um, I think the real problem is the difference in power. So the interviewer has enormous power, and the interviewee doesn't. You're trying to sell yourself. You can try really hard, but at the end of the day, the interviewer has all the cards. And I think because I've been on both sides of the table and talking to people, I really do think that a lot of interviewers don't really consider it. They don't consider this power relationship, and often they hide behind procedures. So I've had, so they'll say, oh, they're very, oh, we do this, and that's why we're showing that we're not biased, or oh, we're doing. But at the end of the day, I've actually seen they've chosen really inappropriate people, and then they kind of go, oh well, the procedure was okay, and that's now HR's problem, or that's now the line manager's problem. And so you have to think about how many amazing candidates were rejected just because the interviewer was tired. Looking back, it was a wee while back though, but I remember I went to a job interview, really keen, and the three people, they started off by saying, oh well, you're our last candidate, and I was like, oh okay. And then they were like, oh, it's really tired, it's been a long day. They just started, and then they started riffing on, the holidays were coming up, what plans did I have, and it was a conversation. I was trying really hard to bring it on, and they started yawning, and complete train wreck of an interview. But in their mind, they were working. They'd tried their best. They'd interviewed how many candidates, I don't know. It's now the end of the day, close to finishing time. So there's just one more face. And I don't think they even thought of that. The fact that, I'd gone to all the bother of attending, I'd researched the post, I had all my follow-up questions, they just wanted, and I left there really quite despondent. Similarly, I got other ones who, there was one, and I remember, and they didn't even pick up their pens to take any notes. And they were just nodding, and then they would say, thank you very much. And I thought, oh wow, I wonder why it went really wrong there. And then when they phoned up, they said, oh well, just, in actual fact, they just found out that there wasn't going to be any funding for that post. But I gave a good interview, thank you very much. And I thanked them. But when I put the phone down, I was like, well, I actually traveled for that interview. So couldn't they have just said, well, there's actually no job? But once again, it's just a job to them. So that's how you deal with that. You're going to have to build up your resilience, take things with a grain of salt, and just soldier on. Yeah, so this has been a little bit of a rambling video, just because I'm a little bit disappointed um, by the job interview, but but the fact is, don't take it personally, because the interviewers, they don't take it personally. It's just a job. I do think many of them should think about it a bit more, because I have had so many bad interviews, as I've said. I do think people, I don't know why, there does seem to be an idea going around now that, oh, you shouldn't read the CVs. I think people should. They should look at the CVs and then ask the questions. So many interviews, and maybe it's because of the grade I'm looking at, which is, maybe when you're further up, it's the interviews are more on point. But I mean, most of the interviews I go for, you can see the interviewers are getting bored themselves. They've got their standard questions. They might do a follow up, but generally, you know what the questions are going to be. One of the advice people give is, don't give, standard answers, but it's quite difficult when you get standard questions sort of handed out to you. So that's something to think about. See if you can get some creativity or something to stand out. But employers don't do that. I mean, they'll just say, oh, timekeeping, attention to detail, um, and uh, and because often, if they haven't done their own research on the candidate, then it really shows, and that can put a dent in your confidence and in your demeanor during an interview. So just be prepared that there are going to be different types of interviewers, and some of them are going to be like really interested, very friendly, very approachable. They'll have the water out for you. They'll discuss things. They'll let you take your time. There'll be others which will be like bang, 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 bang. Any more questions? Okay, thank you, goodbye. We'll tell you about the job next week, or tomorrow, or whatever. And you kind of, as soon as you go out that door, you know what the. So you just have to be prepared for that. I think it is good if you get interview experience. If you've got a friend or somebody, they can do some sort of role play with you, and they can ask you the questions, and then maybe they can put their own little spin so you don't get hit out by those curveballs. But you just have to keep plugging away. Well, I didn't really put too much thought into this video, just because I really just wanted to get it off my chest, and I think it's kind of on. It is apropos to what I'm doing, because I do community projects and whatnot. So I'm kind of wanting to, dare I say, be real. Gosh, I sound very 80s, but never mind. So I hope you've enjoyed this video or found it useful. Now, as I said, this is the third installment of my 10 video exercise. I decided to do 10 videos just to build up that experience, and hopefully kind of polish my performance and and challenge my comfort level when it comes to producing content. Excuse me. And they're all going to be quite random. Now, there's an environmentalist project I'm working with people with. There's also one on mental health, which I'm doing, and of course I volunteer with 2 other organizations. So hopefully, if I do continue with this, I'll make it more online with that, and hopefully sort of have an idea where this is going. So fingers crossed. So anyway, thank you very much, and goodbye.